I'm sure most of you are familiar with King Saul of the Old Testament, how he famously came into power as the first king over the people of Israel, and then famously declined into ruin. The story is going to be about someone who was close to him, someone who he trusted dearly, who sat by his side at the dinner table and commanded his armies through a period of time plagued with war against the Philistines. This man's name was Abner, and he was the cousin of King Saul. The name Abner means "my father is the light bearer," which wasn't far from the truth, given that Abner's father, Ner, and Saul's father, Kish, were brothers and leaders of a wealthy clan of Benjaminites who had a firm grasp on the future dynasty of Israel. Abner took his role as commander-in-chief and close advisor to the king very seriously, seeking to preserve the king's power within his family. Ironically, Abner's first act during his introduction in 1 Samuel 17 was bringing David to Saul, a meeting that would mark the beginning of the end of Saul's reign. From here, David's military exploits and accomplishments grew increasingly to the point that he was promoted senior commander under Abner and was the most celebrated soldier by the people, as they sang, "Saul has killed his thousands, and David his tens of thousands." This developed deadly jealousy within Saul towards David, because David was celebrated even more than the king himself. Fearing for his life, David fled Saul's inner circle and happened to take the loyalty of his son Jonathan with him. Abner, however, remained by the king's side, proving more loyal to the king than his own son. Abner, acting as the king's personal bodyguard and commander of his forces, followed the king into the wilderness in his pursuit for David's life. One night in the wilderness, when Abner had laid his guard down and fallen into a deep sleep, David, with the help of Abishai, snuck into his camp and found himself standing over Saul's body. With a clear shot at taking Saul's life and ending this pursuit, David chose mercy instead, but reveled in mocking Abner for his failure to protect his king, though it was the Lord who had put Saul's men into a deep sleep. Later, Saul was killed in battle with the Philistines, and David, already anointed as the next king of Israel, took the throne of Judah. Instead of Abner supporting David as God's anointed, he used his military power and influence to instead back Saul's son Ishbosheth as the new king in an attempt to cement his family's dynasty in Israel. Soon, the two armies were at war, Israel, led by Abner, and Judah, led by the brothers Abishai, Joab, and Asahel, warriors of David's inner circle. Following the war, Abner and the men of Israel were defeated by the forces of David, and then Asahel began a relentless pursuit after Abner. The Bible compares Asahel's speed to that of a gazelle, which he used to close the gap between Abner and himself. Failing to heed Abner's warning, Asahel continued his pursuit, which led to Abner stabbing him in the stomach with his spear, which traveled through his body and exited through his back. Asahel's brothers Abishai and Joab then set out after Abner, seeking revenge for the death of their brother. Time passed and David's forces grew stronger, while Israel's grew weaker. One day, Ishbosheth, Saul's son, accused Abner of sleeping with one of his father's concubines, a woman named Rizpah. This made Abner furious as he exclaimed to the king, "Am I some Judean dog to be kicked around like this? After all I have done for your father, Saul, and his family and friends by not handing you over to David, is this my reward? That you find fault with me about this woman? May God strike me and even kill me if I don't do everything I can to help David get what the Lord has promised him." Ishbosheth was a weak leader and feared Abner's power. Abner then made all the meeting arrangements to fulfill his promise. Upon arriving at Hebron to meet David with 20 of his men, David entertained him with a huge feast and then sent him on his way. But Joab and Abishai caught wind that Abner had been around and that he had spoken with David. They spoke out against David, insisting that Abner was there to spy on him. So Joab sent messengers to catch up with Abner, asking him to return without David's knowledge. After Abner had arrived back in Hebron, Joab took him aside, pretending to want a private conversation, and then stabbed Abner in the stomach, killing him in revenge, the same way he had killed their brother Asahel. David mourned the death of Abner deeply, leading in the funeral lament. He fasted all day and even wrote a funeral song for him. David, in his own words, spoke that a great commander and a great man has fallen in Israel this day.